Back to Psalms 37. I think we've been in this psalm for a whole month now. So we're back in Psalms 37, but we're going to begin at verse number 34. So we're back in Psalms 37, but we're going to begin at verse number 34, and we're going to try to bring this to a close. You all know that next month we won't be having Bible study. We'll be on vacation for the whole month of August, but we will still be having service, and every Sunday we'll be bringing you a guest preacher. And so we certainly pray for those preachers as they come, and then pray for us as we attempt to try to do all that we can to make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to not only see them, but hear them as well. So we're back in Psalms 37. We know that Psalms 37 was a psalm of David. And in the very beginning of that psalm, David tells us to fret not. But as we get down into that psalm, David says for us to trust in the Lord. And he's going to end this psalm with trust in the Lord. So we're going to begin reading at verse number 34. We left off at verse number 33. We know that this psalm really deals with a perfect contrast of the wicked as well as the righteous. And just before we get in there, let us turn to Proverbs 14. Let us turn to Proverbs, the 14th chapter. Because all through the Bible, one of the things is that the Old Testament really teaches us how God views humanity according to God's standards and according to God's laws and according to God's precepts. So in other words, you are either with God or you are against God. You are either with God or you are against God. So let's look at Proverbs, the 14th chapter, beginning at verse number 11. And I think this really is telling of which Bible am I reading out of? Hold on for 1 second. Yeah, this is the right one. So, beginning at verse number 11, it says, "The house of the wicked will be overthrown. The house of the wicked will be overthrown, but the tent of the righteous, but the tent of the upright will flourish." You see that? The house of the wicked will be overthrown, but the tent of the upright will flourish. And then you have this verse here, number 12, which is the verse that I was really wanting to share with you. "There is a way that seems right to a man, but the end is the way of death." And so when we get back here into Psalms 37, go back to Psalms 37, what we see here is we really get a very good picture of the wicked as well as the righteous. How the wicked live and how the righteous live, what the wicked does. And all throughout this, we saw that the wicked's aim and goal always seemed to be that of overthrowing the people of God. And the wicked folk have problems with righteous people or people that do right. And so David has experienced this, and this is what he's sharing with us. He's given us some wisdom here as to how we are, those of us that believe God, that love God, that are followers of God, how do we live in this wicked society? I mean, when you look at our president who's ready to literally destroy America just so that he can become president again. He is willing to just unleash everything and just call the total collapse of this world, of this country, just so that he can become president again. So the Bible talks about that level of wickedness and spiritual wickedness in high places. So let's go down here to verse number 34. We're going to start at verse 34. We're going to read, and then we're going to try to come back and try to unpack that as best as we can. So, wait on the Lord and keep his way, and he shall exalt you to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, you shall see it. I have seen the wicked in great power, and spreading himself like a native green tree. Yet he passed away, and behold, he was no more. Indeed, I sought him, but he could not be found. Mark the blameless man, and observe the upright, for the future of that man is peace. But the transgressor shall be destroyed altogether. The future of the wicked shall be cut off, but the salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. He is their strength in time of trouble. The Lord shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them, because they trust in the Lord. So that's what's key here, is trusting in the Lord. So what we have here when we look at Psalms 37, and as we have been studying this for the past 4 weeks, we looked at how the wicked, and we saw the contrast of the righteous, and you can see there is a stark contrast. And so what David is setting out to let us know in the very beginning of this psalm, when David says to fret not thyself because of evildoers, what we need to understand is so much of the agony and anguish that we experience in life sometimes, a lot of it is mental. And so David is saying, I want you to get this into your head, into your mind, is to don't allow this stuff to overtake you and to cause you sleepless nights and whatever, because that's the goal of the wicked, is to upset you, to cause you to have some unrest, that you don't have any peace. And so what we're seeing here, when we look at Psalms 37 as a whole, and we have been studying this, we got to this verse number 23, when it talks about the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way, and though he fall, he shall not utterly be cast down, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. Those are very encouraging words, because it lets us know that as the people of God, we do have the potential of falling. Christians do sin. We do fall short of the glory of God. But the beauty of it is that God is there to not only hold our hands, but God keeps us standing. We fall, but God gives us the strength and the power and the ability to be able to get up and to move forward. So the wisdom of Psalm 37 is the testimony to the actual intervention of God in all human life. So God is not only intervening in all human life, God is going to intervene in all human life. He's going to intervene according to, and the reward is going to be according to the way that we live. So God is going to intervene in the human affairs of man. Whether you are righteous or wicked, God will intervene and reward you or bless you according to the way you are living your life in Him. And remember, we said that there is no righteousness outside of God. It is God that gives. God is the one that gives us righteousness. Whatever righteousness we have, and I think in Isaiah said the best of your righteousness is like a filthy rag in God's eyesight. So the righteousness that we have and the good that we do, the good that we attempt to do, that we want to do, that we try to do, that is indeed from God. Because outside of God, man does not know how to do right. Cain killed Abel. God talked about the wickedness of men and was sinful, continually, always. God has to teach us how to be right and how to live right. So we have this testimony here in Psalm 37 is that regardless of how you live, God is going to intervene in your life and God is going to reward you accordingly. So let's go over here to Galatians 6 and 9. and we're going to come back because there are some scriptures that can make this a little clear. There is a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof is destruction. That could easily be read, that wicked people think that what they're doing is right, and that it's okay. But the Bible is just making it clear that the end of that man is destruction. So let's go over here to Galatians 6, 7, and 9. And look at what that says. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he shall also reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. So David says, fret not yourself. Don't get angry. Don't get upset. Don't let all this stuff entertain your mind and get in your head and you mad and you looking at the perplexity. How is it that somebody who is wicked, don't go to church, don't pray, don't love God, don't try to do anything good, yet they seem to have it all? And then here you got righteous folk in rags who's trying to live the life that God would have them to live. That's perplexing. It's not a question that can necessarily easily be answered. But David here in Psalms 37 says, I can't answer why, but I can tell you to rest assured that God is not only going to intervene, but the wicked shall have their day. That in the final analysis of it all, God is going to take care of the righteous. Well, some folks might say, well, I want mine right now. You can have yours right now. You can. So, God may or may not remove the afflictions of the wicked. It's stuff that folk do that afflict you. You know what I'm saying? And he says here, God may or may not remove the affliction of the wicked upon the righteous, but God will always intervene on their behalf. You can rest assured of that. It doesn't matter what anybody do to you. It doesn't matter how folk treat you. You can rest assured that somewhere, somehow, God is going to intervene. So in the Old Testament, we are dealing with a group of human beings whose life and activity is judged and understood from the viewpoint of God. Okay? Not man. You see, that's why when David got in trouble, and David said, don't put me in the hands of man. You put me in God's hands. Because if you put me in God's hands, God is going to be merciful. Human beings are not going to be merciful. You know what they say? Kill him, get him, get her. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Dr. Hill used to say, you got all these folk walking around here with one eye and no teeth. If you do that. But God wants us to be merciful, and that mercy only comes from those people who are in God. And this is what David is teaching us. So God is judging these human beings from his viewpoint. What God deemed is righteous. You see, that's why we got to be careful, how we judge people. God loves the prostitute just as much as he loves the librarian. That's a terrible analogy, but we always think of the librarian as prim and proper, not knowing that the librarian might be working at the strip club. You know what I'm saying? So, but I'm just giving you an example that we have to be careful how we judge people. We really can't judge them. It's not ours to judge. Now, you can be a fruit inspector. You know what I'm saying when I say fruit inspector? You can inspect the tree. And you can sit there and look at that tree and say, something ain't right about that tree. That tree ought not be shaking it like that. That's supposed to be apples. That tree got oranges. Or that's supposed to be figs and that tree got apples or whatever. You will know them by the fruit that they bear. Okay, so that's what the Bible teaches us. So really, as Christians, we don't have no other choice but to live holy lives. If the Spirit of God is in you, you can't help but live a holy life. So the wicked basically withdraw from God's rule and resist God's will. That's what wicked folk do. They don't want to do it God's way. That's what's wrong with our society now. Nobody wants to do it God's way, or they want to do it God's way, but they want to do it their God's way. It's whatever God that they have created, their God, that's convenient for them. They don't want to deal with a just and righteous God. And so we always want to think that God is so loving, and he is, and God is so kind, and he is, and God is so precious and sweet, and he's all of that. But we fail to realize that God is also a God of wrath, and that there is a wrath that is coming upon this planet. We can see it now with this coronavirus. Even if we find a vaccine, and half of y'all don't take the shot, but even if we find a vaccine, and everything turns out okay, look at the death that has happened because of this. You follow what I'm saying? We'll look back on this just like we look back on that bird flu or whatever that flu was around, the turn of the century. So there is a wrath of God. And I truly believe that what we are experiencing is God's judgment. In other words, God is saying, y'all are going somewhere I hadn't intended for y'all to go. And so I may have to put a pause in here to at least try to, wake you up. It's just like Moses, it's like Noah was preaching for 120 years. Y'all, it's going to rain. Folk looking at Noah, what you mean rain? We don't even know what no rain is. Never even seen no rain. Don't even know what you're talking about. And he kept going on about his business. It's going to rain, y'all. Folk probably came by his house and said, man, I hear all that knocking and hammering. What you doing over there? I'm building an ark. Why? It's going to rain. Yeah, whatever. What happened? He went in. God shut the door. Can you imagine the fury and the anguish and the screams and the terrifying of people who are outside trying to get in? But he gave them plenty of time, but they didn't want to believe. The wicked don't want to do, they continue to resist the will of God. While the righteous seek to do God's will and to obey God's rule, the righteous always seem to be suffering. But the psalmist, in his attempt to understand this predicament, gives us good advice and good instructions on how we are to live. So when we looked at Psalms 37 verses down 1 through 11, basically he's saying don't be overly obsessed with wicked and evil doers. Don't even waste your time, because they're going to get theirs. You ain't got to worry about that. Remember how Hitler, and do anybody know where Hitler is? And look at the crime and the devastation that Hitler brought on so many Jews. You can look back over history and see the wickedness of men and the wickedness of men that was in leadership and power. You can't even find them no more. And that's what David is saying here. They will soon pass away. Death is the equalizer. If that don't get you, you truly cannot escape death. So don't be overly obsessed with this. This is a mind thing. So now we're down at Psalms 37, and we look at verses 34 through 40. Now, when verse 34, it says here, wait on the Lord. I think sometimes we think that just means just sitting down and doing absolutely nothing. But I'm a firm believer that word waitress and waiter, who's waiting on you? Oh, that's my waitress or my waiter. Well, their purpose is to come and serve me. Are we serving God? It don't mean just sit and do nothing. It means serve God in the midst of we're looking to see what God is going to do in our lives. So don't mean just sit there like you sitting waiting at a bus stop or something like that. No. This is not that wait. This waiting is to serve God. So he says here, wait on the Lord and keep his way, and he shall exalt you to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, you'll see it. So I kept trying to think about what they keep talking about. This ain't the first time. When you go up to verse number 29, Psalm 37:29, the righteous shall inherit the land and dwell in there forever. When you go up to Psalms 37:3, trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. So when you talk about land, one of the precious things you can have. When you have land, you have something. But think about when you have land and you have a green pasture. That land, you live off of the produce of that land. You know, when you green pastures, a place for grazing, it's green, it's prosperous. So when he's saying that land is I believe it's that place in God. Okay, you will inherit the land. Or it could be like the land when God told them in the book of in the Torah, the land flowing with milk and honey, and they did not want to go in, and God had already. It's just the same thing. God said, "I got a place for you, but don't think you just gonna walk right on up in there and sit down. It is yours, but you got to do something to possess it and to take it." So God has pastures. He has the righteous shall inherit that. So when we look down here at verse number 35, 36, he says, "I have seen the wicked in great power and spreading himself like a green bay tree, like a native tree." In other words, when you look at Donald Trump, prime example, his powers are endless. He's just spreading himself, doing this, doing that, doing this, doing that. David is saying here, I've seen the wicked in great power. Men who think they have great power. Men who think that they are powerful. David said, I've seen all of that. He said, I've seen the wicked in great power. And he said, yet he was spreading himself. He no more. You can't find him no more. So, don't fret. You don't have no reason to worry. They will soon have their day. That's what he's saying here. So when we get to verse number 37, 38, he says, mark the blameless man and observe the righteous. Mark the blameless man and observe the righteous. All right? But the transgressors shall be destroyed. The future of the wicked shall be cut off. He keeps giving us this contrast. And this is what we have. You always going to have wicked people and righteous people. Be it on your job, be it in your club, be it in your church, be it in your home, wherever you are. He's giving you this contrast, but he wants to make sure that those of us who love God, those of us who believe God, those of us who are serving God, we have to know that there is a way that we are to live. Ours is not to render evil for evil. That is not what God has what God has called us to do. So, focus in on people who live righteous lives. In other words, mark that person. That's what he's saying. Look at that person who's living a good life. Look at that person whose life is righteous. He says, if you mark that person, the end of that man's life is peace. Isn't it amazing? You would think that wicked folk would get sick and tired of their lives being in turmoil. But sometimes people get comfortable. You follow what I'm saying? Some people can't help it. They comfortable. That's all they know. That's all they know to do. That's all they know to live. So they do accordingly. But God is saying not so for those of us who are the people of God. And so Job says, I wished I was never born. He said, if only I could have never left that place where the wicked cease from troubling and the weary shall be at rest. So life is full of trouble. If you got kids, you're going to have some trouble. Life is full of trouble. And we have to, God never promised us that everything was going to be sweet and peachy keen and rosy, that we weren't going to have no problems. But God did say that he would be right there with us. And what I'm taking courage from with this psalm is the fact that whatever wickedness is thrown my way, I can rest assured that God is going to intervene on my behalf. You know, he might not, he ain't say he's going to take, what that song say, Lord, please don't move this mountain, but give me the strength to climb. Please don't take away my stumbling block. So in other words, God will give us just what we need to endure those afflictions, whatever comes our way. The Bible says, he who would live godly can expect tribulation and persecution. If you trying to live right and live the way God would have you to live, you might as well face it. You are going to run into some problems. Some of them problems what you done brought on, but he's saying if you trying to live right, some problems we have because of the problems that we did, and we're reaping the crops of that. You know, we're reaping what we've sown. But he's talking about if you trying to live right and you trying to do right and you trying to be right and you trying to do what the psalmist said over here in Psalms 37 and verse number 3, trust in the Lord and do good. If you're trying to do good, you can expect this. So as we come to a close down here, verse number 39 through 40, and then we're going to give you all an opportunity to make comments. Those of you that are on Zoom, certainly you can make comments. Those of you that are on Facebook Live, you can write your comments in, and I'll try to read them. We're going to end up a little bit early, but I certainly want to give you all an opportunity to share. I hope that you all have been blessed by these 4 weeks of dealing with Psalm 37. We didn't try to do it all at one time. We kind of broke it down 11 verses at a time, but certainly want to hear from you. But here we are in verse number 39 through 40, and this is what he ends with. First of all, in verse number 38, but the transgressor, you done transgressed. You done went somewhere you know you ain't had no business going. When you have a sign that say, do not trespass on my property, meaning don't trespass on my land. When you trespass, you have transgressed. You done went where you ain't got no business going. So what does he say here? The transgressor shall be destroyed together. The future of the wicked shall be cut off. But the salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. And that word salvation, when you go to the Salvation Army consists of things that have been thrown out. Nobody wants it. It's been discarded. So once it's been salvaged, you go and purchase it. You take it home. You mend it. You get it clean. You get it prepared. And it looks brand new. But it was something that was thrown out. The salvation. That's the way it was with us. We were cast out because of Adam. And because of what Christ did, we have been redeemed. We have been made new. We have been brought nigh. We have been brought back to God. So, the salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. He is their strength in the time of trouble. Even in these times, you don't have to be fearful. Fearful, yeah, I get it. That's human nature. But then after you done got a little fearful, you can take courage that God is still on his throne. You know, everybody that's getting sick from the coronavirus ain't dying. You know, God is still on his throne. So God is their strength in the time of trouble, and the Lord shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them because they trust in him. The deliverance of the righteous is in the Lord's hand. Strength when you need it, when you're in trouble. The Lord is our help. The Lord is our deliverer. And the Lord is our salvation. So what does it mean to trust? I'm going to give you these verses. Psalm 37 and 1. The first thing that means to trust is don't fret. Because if you're fretting, you're not trusting. So what does it mean to trust? Do not fret. Psalms 37:3. What does it mean to trust? Do good. Okay? Psalms 37:4. What does it mean to trust? Delight yourself in God. Take pleasure in God. David said, the joy of the Lord is my strength. So what does it mean to trust? Fret not, do good, delight yourself in the Lord. Psalm 37:5. Commit your way to him. This is what it means to trust. Rest in the Lord. Psalms 37:7. Psalm 37:18. The Lord knows our days. God knows everything there is about us. He knows what we're going to run into. He knows what's coming our way. He knows our good days, our bad days. God knows all of that. That's what it means to trust. You done put everything in his hand. What's that song we used to say? I put it all in his hand. This, that, whatever it is. I put it all in his hand. You done put all of it in God's hands. That's what this is. He knows our days. Psalm 37:23. The steps of a good man. Your lifestyle, your coming, your going. God has ordered your steps. God has preordained your life. The good man whose steps is ordered by the Lord. What does it mean to trust? Psalm 37:31. The law of God is in his heart. In other words, the law. We know that the Jewish Torah, those first 5 books of the Bible, in Greek, the Pentateuch, that's the Jewish law. But those laws, the law of God, Jesus said, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. So he's saying here, when you trust in God, you have his laws in your heart, right here. Your heart, in your head. They are a part of you. Psalm 37:34. Wait on the Lord. Wait on him. Serve him. We are taught to live in confidence and having a complacency in God. In other words, if we're going to be at ease at all, we ought to be at ease in God. That will keep us from fretting. That will help us to not be so content and worrying about evildoers. We must make God our help in the way we live, and in the life of the believer lies his or her reliance on God. That's your lifestyle. How much do you rely on God? This ain't no just Sunday go to church type deal. I'm a worship God on Sunday morning, but then when I get back home, beginning on Monday, I'm doing whatever I want to do. No. Whoever told you that told you a lie. This is a lifestyle change. This is a 24/7, 7 days a week, 365. You are a brand new individual in Christ. Your thinking is supposed to be different. Okay? We must make God our heart's desire. Now, the victory over the temptation to envy the wicked is not easy. And you can't do it by human reasoning. Only the thing that will help us from fretting and worrying about wicked folk and what they do, it is going to come by our faith in God and patiently waiting for God to help.